The contractor handed me the letter at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October. He'd pulled down the drywall in what was supposed to be the nursery. The paper was yellowed, folded into quarters, wedged between a stud and the old insulation like someone had hidden it there on purpose. "Mrs. Hollis, I think you want to read this." His name was Reuben. Big hands, kind eyes. He was looking at my belly when he said it. 31 weeks. A girl. We had the name picked out. I unfolded the paper. "Marcus, when she's gone at the pharmacy conference next month, bring the key. I want to be in your bed, not some hotel. Your bed. He thinks I'm his wife, but I know whose I really am. Yours, C." The handwriting was loopy, bubbly. I knew the handwriting before I finished the first sentence. Cassidy, my maid of honor, the woman who'd given a toast at our wedding 4 years ago and cried when she said, "To forever." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I put one hand on the wall to steady myself and the other on my stomach because the baby had started kicking. Reuben was still standing there with his hat in his hands. "Ma'am, do you want me to keep working or—" "Keep working. Don't tell anyone. Please." Then I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat of my 2016 Honda CR-V, and stared at the garage door of the house my husband and I had bought 11 months ago on Bardstown Road in Louisville, Kentucky. And I understood, very calmly, that every single thing I thought was my life was a stage set, and someone had just handed me the script. To understand how I ended up in that driveway, rereading a love note to my husband from my best friend while my daughter kicked inside me. I have to take you back. My name is Harper Hollis. I'm 31 years old. I'm a pharmacist. I fill prescriptions at an independent pharmacy on Frankfurt Avenue, the kind of place where old ladies bring us zucchini bread and the diabetic regulars know my name. I've been doing it for 6 years. I'm good at it. I notice things. Dosages that don't match, interactions people miss, the small hesitations in someone's voice when they're lying about whether they're really taking their blood pressure meds. I noticed everything. Except, apparently, my own husband. Marcus and I met in Lexington in 2015 at a wedding where I didn't want to be and he didn't either. He was a groomsman. I was the girl in a green dress who'd been seated next to him because the bride thought we'd click. She was right, in the worst possible way. He was a project manager for a commercial construction firm, tall, rangy, quiet in a way that felt like depth instead of emptiness. On our second date, he drove me to a spot outside the city to show me the Milky Way, and I remember thinking, this one. This is the one. We got married in 2018 in a barn in Bardstown. Cassidy stood next to me in a blush dress and held my bouquet when I cried. She'd been my best friend since junior year of high school, maid of honor, godmother in waiting. She had a key to our house. She fed our cat when we went on vacation. She came to Thanksgiving when her own mother was being difficult. My grandmother came to the wedding. She was 84 and had buried 2 husbands and was the sharpest person I've ever known. She pulled me aside during the reception, took my face in both her hands, and said something I've never forgotten. "Harper, baby, listen. A smile that shows up every time someone's phone is in their hand. That smile belongs to the phone, not to you. Watch whose face lights up at a screen." I laughed. I thought she was being dramatic. I kissed her cheek and went back to my husband. Here's the thing I didn't understand at the time. My grandma was already watching. She'd already seen something. She just didn't have the proof yet, and she wasn't the kind of woman who said things without proof. The first 3 years were good. Or, I thought they were. We bought a starter condo, sold it at a profit, and in late 2022, we closed on the Little Craftsman on Bardstown Road. 3 bedrooms, original hardwood, a cherry tree in the yard. Marcus said the 3rd bedroom would be a nursery. When we're ready. I was ready. He kept saying, 1 more year. I got pregnant in February of 2024. An accident. A beautiful accident. When I told him, he smiled the right way, said the right things, bought me a stupid onesie that said, "Daddy's favorite." I kept that onesie in my hospital bag for months, and the whole time, he was sleeping with Cassidy. I just didn't know yet. Remember the letter. Remember the key. Remember my grandmother's quote. Because every one of those things becomes a door I had to walk through, and the rooms on the other side were worse than I could have imagined. The small changes started in early 2024. Around the time I got pregnant, actually, which is its own kind of cruelty. Marcus had always left his phone face up on the kitchen counter. It was almost a joke between us. He was the one who'd forget where he put it, and I could always just glance over and see it lighting up with his mom, his boss, his fantasy football group chat. In March, without saying anything, he started flipping it over. Face down. Every time. I noticed. I didn't say anything. Then the password. He'd had the same password for 6 years. Our anniversary backwards. I used to unlock it for him when his hands were full. In April, I picked it up to hand it to him, and it said, "Incorrect passcode." He shrugged. "I change it every so often. Work security thing." He never told me the new one. Then the gym. Marcus had never in his life gone to a gym. He played pickup basketball twice a month and called it exercise. In May, he joined an LA Fitness. "I want to be in shape for the baby," he said. "Roll around on the floor with her without my back going out." I cried. I thought it was the sweetest thing. I told Cassidy about it over brunch 2 days later, and Cassidy said, "Oh my God, Harper, that's so Marcus. He's gonna be the best dad." Cassidy was sleeping with him. She'd probably slept with him the night before. She ate an omelet across from me and said those words with her whole face. The new cologne came in June. Tom Ford, something smoky. He'd always worn the same drugstore stuff I bought him for Christmas. When I asked about the new one, he said his mother got it for him. I asked his mother 3 weeks later, casually, and she laughed. "Honey, I don't even know what Tom Ford is." I wrote that down. I didn't know why. I just wrote it down in the Notes app on my phone under a note called Groceries, so he wouldn't think to look. The late nights at the site started in July. The Pilates class Cassidy had been urging me to try, which turned out to be on the same 3 evenings Marcus was stuck at the Shelbyville project. The way he lit up when his phone buzzed on the couch next to me. A specific smile, small and private, not the one he used when his brother texted him memes. The Venmo I glimpsed over his shoulder while he was paying our water bill, $50 to CP for lunch. Cassidy Pell. I asked him once, in August. Just once. I was 18 weeks pregnant and sick of my own gut feeling. "Marcus, is something going on? With us?" He put down his fork. He gave me the look a man gives his wife when he wants her to feel stupid for opening her mouth. "Harper, you're pregnant. Your hormones are all over the place. You're being paranoid. We're fine. Please don't do this." I apologized. Can you believe that? I apologized to him. 3 weeks later, I hired a contractor to tear down the drywall in the nursery so we could rewire it for the new ceiling fan. And Reuben found the letter. Here's what nobody tells you about the moment you find out. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a silence that sits on your chest like a large animal. I sat in my car for 40 minutes after Reuben handed me the letter. I read it 14 times. Then I drove to a Thornton's gas station, bought a pack of saltines and a bottle of water, and threw up in the parking lot. My phone was buzzing. Marcus. "How's it going with the contractor?" "Love you." I wrote back. "Going great. Love you too." Then I did something I'd never done before in my marriage. I lied. Not a small lie. A strategic one. "Hey babe, my feet are swollen and I feel off. I'm gonna stay at my grandma's tonight so she can fuss over me." "Okay?" "Of course, baby. Take care of our girl." Our girl. I drove to my grandmother's house in St. Matthews. She opened the door in her housecoat, took one look at my face, and said, "It's about Marcus." Not a question. I handed her the letter. She read it twice. Then she folded it, set it on the kitchen table next to her reading glasses, and said, "Sit down, Harper baby. We need to be quiet, and we need to be smart. This is not a shouting situation. This is a documenting situation." I asked her how she knew. She said, "I told you at your wedding. I watch faces. His face lit up at that phone the whole reception, and it wasn't lighting up at you." My grandma put a kettle on. She put a legal pad in front of me, and she said, "Write down everything. Every small thing you noticed, every date, every smell, every time your gut spoke and you shushed it." I filled 6 pages. She read them and she said, "That boy's been running 2 lives, and one of them has been using your guest room key." 2 days later, I went home. I kissed Marcus on the cheek. I said, "Sorry I was weird. I think it was Braxton Hicks." He said, "Oh, honey, you scared me." And then I started watching. The first thing I learned was that Marcus had a second phone. I'd never seen it. But he had a specific routine. On Tuesday and Thursday evenings, he'd announce he was going to check the mail and take his keys. The mailbox was 40 feet from our door. He'd be gone 12 minutes. Always 12. I followed him once, in slippers, from the window. He went to his truck, sat in the driver's seat, pulled something out of the center console, was on it for 10 minutes, then put it back, closed the console, and walked back in with a stack of flyers. The next Tuesday, while he was in the shower, I got his truck key off the hook, went outside in my bathrobe at 9 p.m. like a woman who'd lost her mind, and opened the center console. It was there. A black Android. Cheap. The kind you buy at a Walgreens. I didn't take it. I didn't touch it. I closed the console, went back inside, and told my grandmother the next morning. She said, "Now we need help, Harper baby. Real help." Real help turned out to be her nephew's wife's brother, a man named Delroy who'd retired from the Louisville Metro Police Cyber Unit and now did private work. My grandma called him. He came over for peach cobbler and told me, "If you can get me that phone for 48 hours, I know a forensic team that can pull everything off it. Deleted messages, call logs, location history, every app. Cloned and documented. Legal for a Kentucky divorce filing." "What do I do?" I asked. "You wait for the right night," he said, "and you steal it clean." Meanwhile, Cassidy kept showing up. She came over for Sunday dinner the weekend after I found the letter. She brought a pan of lasagna and a pink onesie with ruffles. She hugged me. She hugged Marcus. She put her hand on my belly and said, "I can't wait to meet her, Harp. You're going to be such a good mom." I smiled. I thanked her. I did not claw her eyes out, which is what I wanted to do. She stayed for 3 hours. She and Marcus did the dishes together while I rested on the couch. I could hear them laughing. I watched the way he handed her a plate, the way her fingers brushed his wrist. I thought about the letter. He thinks I'm his wife. I realized, sitting there, that Cassidy genuinely believed she was going to end up with him. She wasn't a fling. She was an understudy. That night, after she left, Marcus brought me tea in bed. "Baby," he said, "you've been so quiet. You sure you're okay?" "Just tired. The baby's really active. You know I love you, right? You and her. That's my whole world." I said, "I know." He kissed my forehead. He went to the bathroom. I heard the shower start. I picked up his regular phone from the nightstand. He'd left it face up for once, careless. And I saw a text notification from Site Foreman Dave that said, "Can't wait for Thursday, baby. 2 whole nights." Site Foreman Dave. I opened the thread before I even thought about it. Pictures, her, him, a hotel, words that are not going on YouTube. I closed the phone. I put it back. I walked to the bathroom door and I listened to my husband humming in the shower, and I understood that I was married to a stranger. Then I went downstairs and I threw up again. And then I ate a sleeve of saltines and texted my grandmother one word: soon. The night I stole the phone was October 17th. Marcus had told me he had a late site visit. His mother had invited us to dinner and he'd said he couldn't make it. I said I'd go alone. Instead, I drove to his mother's, stayed 45 minutes, faked a cramp, and drove home. His truck was in the driveway at 8:47 p.m. The lights in the house were off. I parked down the street. I watched. At 9:12 p.m., a silver Mazda pulled up. Cassidy got out. She had a key. She let herself into my house. I sat there in my car and I breathed through it. I texted Delroy. She's here. He's here. I'm going to get the phone from the truck now while they're distracted. He wrote back, gloves. Don't touch with bare hands. Bag I gave you. 48 hours. I put on the nitrile gloves from my pharmacy bag. I always had a box in my car. I walked up the driveway as quietly as a 7 months pregnant woman can walk. I opened the truck. The console. The phone was there. I dropped it in the evidence bag Delroy had given me, closed the console, locked the truck, and walked back to my car. I drove straight to Delroy's house in Fern Creek. He looked at the phone. He looked at me. He said, 48 hours, Harper. Go home. Act normal. If he notices it's gone before I get it back, we lose everything. I went home. Marcus's truck was still there. Cassidy's Mazda was still there. I drove to my grandmother's and slept in her guest room, which smelled like mothballs and lemon pledge, and I slept more deeply than I had in 4 months. In the morning, I texted Marcus. Stayed at Grandma's again. Bad hip night. Love you. He wrote back, love you too, baby. Get some rest. He had no idea. He had slept in our bed with my best friend and then answered me, love you too, baby, the next morning. Delroy called me 36 hours later. Harper, come to my kitchen. Sit down first. The forensic team had pulled 2,847 messages between Marcus and Cassidy dating back to March of 2019. Let me say that again. 2019. Our wedding was in 2018. They started sleeping together 4 months after I walked down the aisle. There were photos. There were locations. The condo we'd sold, the Airbnb in Gatlinburg, he told me, was a guy's trip. A residence inn in Cincinnati that coincided with my pharmacy conference in September. Every conference, every guy's trip, every late site visit. And there was money. Delroy pulled up a spreadsheet. He's been transferring money to an account in her name. Small amounts. Regular. Over 5 years, it comes to $103,700. Our down payment on the Bardstown house had been $38,000. We'd borrowed from my grandmother. Marcus had told me he'd been saving his bonuses for our future. Our future had apparently included a 5-year romance fund for my maid of honor. I did not scream. I did not cry. I asked Delroy to print everything. 3 copies. 1 for my lawyer, 1 for my grandmother's safe, 1 for me. Then I went to the drugstore and bought a plain white envelope. I put the phone back in Marcus's truck that night, gloves on, at 11:44 p.m., while he was asleep. He never noticed it had been gone. My lawyer's name was Tamsin Ortega. She was 58, Cuban, took no nonsense from anyone, and had been recommended by the one friend from pharmacy school whose ex-husband had tried to hide assets in a fake LLC. Tamsin took one look at the forensic report and said, Mrs. Hollis, this is the cleanest adultery and marital waste case I have seen in 9 years. Kentucky is a no-fault state, but a judge sees this. He's giving you the house, full custody, and a large share of his retirement. She started filing paperwork. Quietly, under seal until the right moment. I moved copies of our important documents, birth certificates, the deed, my grandmother's loan paperwork, to a safe deposit box at Stockyards Bank. I opened a checking account in my name only. I moved $14,000 from our joint savings, exactly half of what was in it, into the new account. I told no one except Tamsin and my grandmother. I bought a baby monitor. Not for the baby, for evidence. I put it on top of the kitchen cabinet, angled at the living room, on a day Marcus was at work. It recorded audio and video to a cloud he didn't know existed because I'd paid for the subscription with my new account. Over the next 11 days, that baby monitor caught Marcus on the phone with Cassidy twice. Once he said, "She has no idea. She's completely checked out. Pregnancy brain." Once he said, "After the baby, I'll figure out how to do this. It's going to be ugly, but we've waited long enough." We've waited long enough. My grandmother came over for tea. I played her the audio. She sat still for a long moment. Then she reached over and took my hand and said, "Harper, baby," a smile that shows up every time someone's phone is in their hand. That smile belongs to the phone, not to you. I told you. I told you at the wedding. I know, Grandma. You're going to be fine. You're going to be better than fine. But I want you to pick the room, pick the time, pick the witnesses, and make it so he never forgets. I knew exactly the room. Marcus's 34th birthday was November 9th. We'd planned a small dinner at our house, his parents, his brother, Cassidy and her fiancé. Yes, Cassidy had a fiancé, a sweet, quiet man named Derek who worked at UPS and had no idea his bride-to-be had been sleeping with the groom's best friend for 5 years. My grandmother. Marcus had insisted on Cassidy being there. "She's family, babe. Of course she's coming." Of course she was. I bought a cake from Plains Bakery, chocolate with raspberry filling, his favorite. I bought candles. I bought a card that said, "To my husband on his birthday." Inside, I wrote nothing. I left it blank. Tamsin asked me if I was sure I wanted to do it this way. "It's going to be brutal for you too, Harper. You'll be standing in front of everyone." "I want them to see him," I said. "I want his mother to see him. I want Derek to see her. I want all of them in one room." 2 days before the dinner, I called Derek. I told him, gently, that I had something to show him, and that I was sorry, and that I was going to be handing him documents at Marcus's birthday dinner, and that he should prepare himself. He was quiet for a long time. "Harper," he finally said, "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Thank you for telling me first." He came. The dinner was at 7. Marcus's parents arrived at 6:45 with a bottle of bourbon, his brother Jesse at 6:50, Cassidy and Derek at 6:58, Cassidy in a cream sweater dress that I'd watched her pick out on a shopping trip 4 weeks earlier, when she'd asked me if it would catch Derek's eye. My grandmother arrived last at 7:03 in her navy blazer, carrying a leather folder. Marcus was at the head of the table, glowing. He'd had 2 glasses of bourbon. He was telling a story about a site where a foreman had mixed up the blueprints. Everyone was laughing. Cassidy was laughing the hardest. Her hand was on Derek's arm, but her eyes kept going to Marcus. At 7:41 p.m., I stood up. I was showing. The dress I'd picked was emerald green, the same color I'd worn on our second date. "Before cake," I said, "I wanted to do something a little different this year. I've put together a slideshow of Marcus, a little retrospective for his 34th. Marcus beamed. "Oh, babe, you didn't have to." "I know," I said, "but I did." I picked up the remote. The TV flicked on. The first slide was our wedding photo. The second slide was a text thread, dated April 14th, 2019, between Marcus and Cassidy. The words were large and clear. The room went silent the way rooms go silent in movies, where you can hear the refrigerator. I clicked again. Another thread. October 2020. Marcus on a guy's trip. The Gatlinburg Airbnb reservation. Cassidy's name on it. Click. A Venmo screenshot. $800 to CP for apartment deposit. Click. A photograph of the two of them at a restaurant in Cincinnati. September 2023. The pharmacy conference weekend. Click. The letter. The one from inside the wall. Full screen. Her handwriting. Click. A spreadsheet. $103,700 over 5 years. Cassidy had stood up. Her face was the color of the cream sweater. Derek was staring at her, and his face was a kind of face I hope I never see again. Marcus was gripping the table. Harper, what are you? Click. The audio played, his voice, crystal clear, from the baby monitor. She has no idea. She's completely checked out. Pregnancy brain. His mother made a sound like she'd been struck. My grandmother slid her leather folder across the table to Marcus. Inside were the divorce papers, already filed, and the custody petition, and a notice about the marital waste findings. Marcus, I said. My voice was even.
My lawyer will be in touch.
He started to stand, started to speak. His mother put her hand on his wrist and said, Sit down, Marcus. Not another word. Derek turned to Cassidy. He said, One word, leave. She tried to grab her purse. My grandmother said, Leave it. I'll mail it. Cassidy walked out of my house without her purse, without her coat, without her fiancé, into the November cold. I looked at Marcus. I said 9 words. The locks change tomorrow. Your things are in the garage. And then I walked up the stairs, to the nursery, to the room where Reuben had found the letter, and I sat down in the rocking chair we had picked out together, and I put my hands on my belly, and I felt my daughter kick, and I cried for the first time since October. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had moved into his brother Jesse's basement. Jesse had told him he could stay as long as it took to find a place, and then, after reading the forensic report, told him it was more like 30 days, bud. His mother had stopped speaking to him. She called me every Sunday to ask about the baby. She still does. Within a month, Cassidy's fiancé, Derek, had returned the ring and moved to Lexington. Cassidy had lost her job. She'd worked at a marketing firm where 2 of her co-workers were also friends of mine, and while I didn't make a single phone call, word traveled fast in Louisville. She moved in with her mother in Indiana. Within 4 months, the divorce was final. The judge read the forensic report, read the letter, listened to the audio, and awarded me the house. Full physical custody with Marcus getting supervised visits, pending a parenting evaluation, and a share of his retirement that covered the $103,700 plus penalties. Tamsin had been right about Kentucky judges. Marcus tried to reach out once, the week before the final hearing. A long email. He said he was sorry. He said he'd been sick. He said the affair had started as friendship and spiraled. He said he still loved me, he loved our daughter, he wanted to fight for us. I did not respond. Tamsin did. She sent him a cease and desist. Cassidy called me in March after the baby was born. I'd had a beautiful baby girl. I named her Juniper, June for short, after my grandmother. Cassidy said, Harper, I just wanted to say, I know it's not enough, but I'm so sorry. I was a terrible friend. I got caught up in something I shouldn't have. I hope one day... I said, Cassidy, don't ever contact me again. If you do, my lawyer will get involved. I hung up. I haven't heard from her since. Reuben, the contractor, finished the nursery at the end of November. I paid him in full, added a bonus, and asked if I could buy him dinner. He laughed and said his wife would have opinions about that, but he brought me a crib he'd built himself out of cherry wood as a baby gift. It's in June's room now. She sleeps in it every night. My grandmother lived to meet June. She died in her sleep the following July, 85 years old. the sharpest woman I've ever known. At her funeral, her pastor read a note she'd left for me. It said, "Harper, baby, you did what I never had the courage to do with my first husband. You paid attention. A smile that shows up every time someone's phone is in their hand belongs to the phone, not to you. Teach June. Teach her well." I keep that note in my dresser drawer. I read it when I need to. The house on Bardstown Road is mine now. The nursery is yellow with a cherry tree stenciled on the wall. The letter is in a sealed envelope in my safe deposit box, next to the divorce decree. Reuben replaced all the drywall in the nursery, and we never found anything else inside the walls. I checked. I still work at the pharmacy on Frankfurt Avenue. The old ladies bring me zucchini bread and ask about June. I started seeing someone about 10 months ago, a pediatrician named Ellis who moved here from Nashville. He met June before he met me, technically, because he did her 6-month checkup. On our third date, over dinner, he put his phone face down on the table without thinking, then caught himself, laughed, and flipped it back, face up. He said, "I read somewhere that's a marriage killer." I smiled. He has no idea how right he is. We're taking it slow. He's kind. He's the kind that doesn't have an undertow. His hand on the small of my back in the kitchen feels like a hand, not a transaction. I went back to school part-time last fall. The dream my grandmother asked me about years ago, the one I'd parked, a master's in clinical pharmacology. I'd given it up for Marcus's career. I'm halfway through now. June comes with me to Saturday classes and sits in the back and colors. The professor loves her. It's 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, 3 years to the day since Reuben handed me the letter. I'm at the pharmacy. June is with my mother-in-law, Marcus's mother, who still calls me her daughter. My phone is on the counter next to the register, face up. The only text on the screen is from Ellis. "Pork chops for dinner? I'll cook." I'm going to say yes. Nobody is going to text me a lie tonight.